Okay, so today we'll be talking about routing in the first half of the class. So the first 2 hours, it's all about routing. You're going to become experts in routing after today. Really experts, I'm telling you. And the second half, we're going to be going through assignment 1. I'll be going through that 101 with each one of you. As I do that individually, the rest of the class will be moving forwards on chapter 9 after step number 4. So you're going to keep moving forwards so we can use well our time. During the assessment 1, it's also a time for you to ask questions, for me to give you some one-on-one direct feedback. I will be giving you pointers to assignment 2. So use this time not just for me to mark you, but for you to ask me questions about assignment and going forward with assignment 2 as well, okay? Let's use this time well. Okay, so just a few recaps about timelines here. So we are on the 13th here, 6th week. Next weekend we have class as well, but then right after that it's reading week until the 27th. Okay, so 27 we don't have class. And then on the 3rd, which is the first weekend after the reading week, it's our midterm already. Yeah. So, so we still have this class here before the reading week and before the midterm. We're going to be doing I'm quite sure that I'll be planning some hands-on here on the next weekend, so you can get a sense of how the test will be, okay? So you're going to have some hands-on here. Most likely the second half of the class will be a hands-on exercise, okay, to assist with the test. What else we have here? I think that's it for now. I hope that by next weekend I'll release a full calendar for the rest of the semester, so we know exactly when things will happen. Again, so you can have that already in your agendas there. Any question about calendar-wise? I mean, about dates for now? Anything? Okay, just want to state one more time. As I keep releasing the videos are always under general. You can go to this class recording playlist, which should load at some point. And again, all the video recordings are here. The video records for the class, yeah. Are the videos private? No, they are unlisted. They are not private. Oh, I can't find them. Yeah, so you cannot search on YouTube, but you can find it from here. If I favorite the link, yes, you should see it. So even if you sign up for the channel, but you don't get notifications because again, I leave it unlisted but open. If you want to share the link with somebody else, you can. But again, it's not openly available, but it's accessible via the link. You don't need to register. Okay, so the videos are here. Source codes, every time that you need some sort of source codes that we have discussed here, you can find it under source code link on the contents, okay? Source codes, I will keep creating different folders inside. You have student system, sports store chapter 8, sports store chapter 9. Anytime that I ask you to say, okay, next class, bonus 7, for instance today, do videos 1, 2, 3, and 4 of bonus of chapter 10. You can use as your reference points the last video of chapter 9. So again, you can go to the last video, chapter 9, download the source code, use that as your base to do the initial videos of chapter 10. I'll mention this again later today. But by the end of the day today, you're going to have all steps from chapter 9 listed here as well, all the source codes, okay? Okay. Okay, so we are starting our week 6. Week 6, we are talking today about routing. Routing. So today, we'll be talking about how to work with the default routing rules. We have worked a little bit with the default routing rule on during part invites. During part invites, the first example that we work in the course, and then we started to look at custom rules during chapter 8 and 9 of Sports Store. Okay, so keep your questions that you may have submitted close by, open, so we can work through them as well. Let me ask you this: based on whoever did the exercise, and by knowing that we're going to be talking about routing, what's your expectations? What are your expectations about what we're going to be discussing today? Anything in mind? Comes to mind? In terms of what we're going to be looking at? Yep.
The navigation, you can use this route to navigate to dash view and that.
Yeah. So we're gonna be doing navigation. Navigation, again, when we talk about navigation, we are talking about controllers and actions. View comes afterwards. So we're gonna be sorting out controllers and actions.
Just figuring out, because every time at the start we usually using MVC with a default route, like learning what that is essentially.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can use something, if we use like a non-default route maybe.
Yep. We're gonna be unpacking what really default route means. What is that? I mean, which rules are being used behind the scenes? So we're gonna unpack that. No. I tend to think that this topic is way more accessible than the topic of database that we have gone through. And I think that you're gonna be more comfortable with this topic here. Okay? Again, I will keep Padlet open as well all the time. So you can always use Padlet if you have something going on. Back to our diagram. I'll always be bringing this up every single time. So based on what I mentioned at the beginning of the class, which element there are we going to be focusing today? Router. So we're going to be focusing on this spot here. Again, we cannot work with this alone outside of a bigger context, outside of touching in the controller, but routing is really about what comes in, the request. It interprets that request, breaks it down into smaller pieces, and then sends to the controller. So yeah, we're going to be focusing on this part here, touching the controller, coming from the web server here, okay? This topic is covered beginning on chapter 8, a little bit more in depth in chapter 9 of the book. So if you have the book, digital or hard copy, you can find it there. I also have additional material that I have provided under week number 6. So you have some reading things there that you can go through as well, in addition to the book or in replacement of the book. As I said, keep your questions close by. Make sure that you get them addressed as we go along through the day, okay? Use Padlet if you want to address them there. Routing. Again, the graphic again. And let's quickly jump here to a little piece of code. This code, just by what you're seeing here, which class has this method in our MVC application? Which class? The startup, okay? So the startup is the one that has the configure method. And in our part invites, the first example that we worked in the course, we have been use MVC with default routes, okay? Now, this method, it gives us access to MVC, the MVC services, but it also gives us a basic route. What is this how this basic route looks like? Well, before I show you that, let's talk a little bit about URLs and how they are built, what are the different elements of URLs. So when we're talking about MVC and routing, we are talking about this part of the URL from after the domain. You can call this part here the domain, the hosts, the address of the server, this part here. When we run our applications, what does it show for you on your computers here in the beginning of the URL? How does it look like? Local host, and then there's what else? A number. So again, you're going to see different numbers, different people see different numbers. So you see localhost, a column, and then a port number. Can anyone tell me what is a port number?
3-something.
Yeah, that's a number. But what is it about?
It's a service that you can have access to.
Yeah, it's a service spot. It's actually, I tend to think, port as a door. It's a door to the server, a door to the computer. Each number is the number of a different door. Okay? So if you see a site, an address like that, what is the port number?
3.
Huh?
3.
3? 80. So the default port number of sites on the web that you don't see the port number explicitly mentioned here is 80. Now, the default port number, if you have HTTPS, is a different one. It's 443, if I'm not mistaken. But those are default port numbers. Whenever you see a number here, it means that site is not using a default port number. It's using that port number. Do you really need to care about that? Not really. I just want you to have a general understanding that port number is how, when you have a server has thousands of port numbers potentially. An application, a request comes in through one of the ports, one of the doors to the server. And that number is the door number, okay? Don't want to stay on this point for too long because, again, it's beyond what we need to really get to know here. But when we're talking about routing, we are really concerned about this part here, not so much of what's going on before that, okay? It's really about this, the different segments that comes after the host address. We have, after the first slash, no, not considering these two slashes, after the first one here, we have the first segment, and the second segment, and the third segment, and so on and so on. We may have as many segments as our application wants to support. Now, what you see here is very much like how the default routing looks like. You have, when we're talking about default routing, we can assume certain things. We can assume that the first term, the first segment after the URL, after the host domain, is the controller. The second one, the action. So again, let's not confuse this. Yes, action and view, they are related, but they don't have to have the same name, okay? And again, this is not a direct relationship to the view, but to the action. This is the name of the action. And then we may or may not have an optional number in the end. So this is a format of the default routing. How do I know that if I'm using default routing? Because you have this line of code, you have this method, use default routes. This is how the default route looks like in general, okay? Now, let's have a, and again, this may sound repetitive, but that's the intention. So if you see a URL like that, if you are using default routing, what is the default controller in the default routing? Home controller. What is the default action? Index. So if you see a URL like this that has nothing after the domain, what can we assume about the controller? What is the controller there? That's the home, because there's nothing defined. So if you cannot see it explicitly stated, it means that it's using the default. It's calling the default. The same thing for action. If we don't have anything here, if we don't have a second segment, it means that we are using the default action tool, which is called index. Okay? So what's the controller? Home. What's the action? Index here. Now, we are clearly stating what we need, what we want there. Again, using the default controller, using default routing. What is the controller? There, home. What is the action? Index. Okay. Let's talk about this case there. See, one thing that I would like you to keep in mind for now is that don't worry yet if there is a controller called, well, what is a controller there? First of all, admin. And what is the action? Index. Because again, now we are using explicitly, we are calling the admin controller. But because there is no second segment, it's using the default second segment, which is the default action, which again is index. Now, that's going back to my first point. Don't worry yet if the application has a controller called admin. Routing, to be honest, does not care about that yet. Routing just cares about, let me look at what is here. Let me break it down into smaller pieces. Let me try to figure out, oh, when you call this URL, here is your controller, here is your action, here are the parameters. Those are the three questions that the router wants to know. Who's the controller? What is the action? What are the parameters? Who's the controller? Who's the action? What are the parameters? Those are the three main questions that the routing mechanism will figure out for you. Okay? Okay, so in this case, using default routing, what is the controller? Admin. What is the action? List clients. That's it. Now we are not using the default action. We are explicitly calling list clients. Okay? So the URL, as you can see, the URL structure is what is telling the application what the user wants to do. I know that now, based on what I read, I'm looking at the list of clients from the controller admin, from the admin controller, okay? So, again, your URL is the one telling the system what you want to do, okay? Now, routing does know, how do I get the list of clients? How do I get that? It's not about the routing. Routing doesn't care about that. Who cares about that? Who cares about getting the list of clients, the true list of clients from the database? Who cares about that in the MVC? The controller, the action. Controller, yeah, so specifically, the action list clients, the method list clients, is the one that will talk to the model to get the data. And then getting that data sends to the view to get the HTML with that list of clients to give it back to the browser. Okay? So again, router does not care about how are they going to figure this out. It just cares about, let me break this down and let me give this. It's almost like the mailman. It just needs the mail delivery guy or person doesn't care about what's in the package. They just deliver that. In a way, that's what the routing mechanism does. It doesn't care about what's going on in that message. It just cares, am I gonna be able to figure out which controller, which action, where I should send this to? That's what it cares about, okay? The only job of the routing is to find the destination of that message. That's really it. Okay, now let's complicate things a little bit. I love complication. So again, it doesn't get easier. It gets harder. So we were talking before about default routing. Default routing, we have used use MVC with default routes, okay? Now, we're going to use something else. We're going to just use MVC. Where are we using this? We are using this on Sports Store. Sports Store, we started to use this. Now, when we say just use MVC, and if we call, parentheses and close parentheses, if we just say that without any of this, we are adding MVC capabilities to our application, yes. But we are not adding any routing. So the application doesn't know how to handle any URLs. If we just call use MVC, yes, we're providing MVC, but the application doesn't know how to handle any of the URLs. It doesn't know, okay, how do I figure out who's the controller here? What is the action? It doesn't know that. We have to specify explicit rules like this so the application can figure things out. Now, let me start by saying that don't worry about the name property here. We're going to be talking about a few properties of routes. Don't worry about the name yet. Name, we're going to be talking about that in the third part of our course. As I said, think of our course as you had the first quote in the first 4 weeks. We're going through the second quotes of things in the next 4 or 5 weeks. And then in the final 4 weeks, you're going to go through a third quote of content, of information, of knowledge. And this part here, we're going to take care of in the last quote. The name, not the template. Template is going to be taking care of this today. We're going to be living today being experts at templates. Okay, so let's have a look at this template. First, let me tell you this. This is, what you see there, has the same effect as this. It's the same thing. Because the rule that we defined there, this is exactly how the default route works like. It has, in our first segment, it has the controller. In our second segment, it has the action. In the third segment, it has this ID, which you can see a question mark there. The question mark means that it's optional. Exactly. So the question mark means it's optional. Now, what is this equals home means? What is that?
It's a home controller. That should be the default.
That should be the default. Yeah, that's the key word there, default. It's not that it's always home. It's just saying that if there is no controller specified in the URL, then the controller is home. Same thing with action. If there's no action in the URL, the default one will be index. So that's what this is doing. Now, look at this. It's inside curly braces, okay? So inside curly braces means that this is a template segment. If I say something like slash soccer, is slash soccer a match for that template? Let's think for a second here. Is it a match? Does it match that expectation there? No?
Like if it's just slash soccer, not within parentheses, not like define equals to something.
No, I'm not talking about a slash soccer being a template. I'm just talking about, let's say that your application has this template, and then I type in the URL of your application, slash soccer. So would slash soccer be a match for that template?
No.
Why not?
Because the controllers won't.
No, yes, it would be, because it would just be soccer, and then it would default the action to index for soccer.
That's correct. That's correct. So soccer would become, again, forget for a second if that makes sense to have a controller called soccer. Forget about that for a second, okay? Put that aside. Just think about strings. We're talking about strings here. Slash soccer is a string. That template is a string. Forget about what comes after that. So slash soccer will become the controller, and then the action. Well, there's no action defined, so action is indexed, and again, ID is optional. So it's a match. Now, does that make sense to have soccer? Well, someone down the line, something will break because there's no controller in our system called soccer. But for the routing point of view, slash soccer is a match for that template. It matches that. It matches that template. What I can say that that does not match that template would be something with 4 segments. If I have a URL with 4 segments, no, it's not a match there. Because this template only has how many? 3 segments, okay? But everything, pretty much anything with 1, 2, or 3 segments, it would be a match. Because we have a default here, and an optional here. So again, pretty much anything would be a match. And you may think, but then what? Yeah, go ahead.
Why would it not work if you have 4? Are you saying the 4th one is not optional?
What I'm saying is that if you try a URL in your application, if it just has that has 4 segments, then it would match this rule here.
Oh, you're saying the URL has 4.
Yeah, the URL that we type. Let's say it's we put something like slash soccer, slash page 1, slash whatever it is. But we put 4 segments. Yep. So it does match. Now, you may think, okay, so I think that our system is pretty good if we just use this all the time because it has 3 segments, should be enough. Well, here's the thing. This template, it only allows for one ID to be used as a parameter for this index action. What if we want an action that has 2 parameters? It no longer fits the bill. What if we want to change a little bit the structure of our URLs? Well, Sports Store is doing that. Let's keep moving forward here. And when we start to see examples, okay, what does iApplication Builder do exactly? Is this where our app is contained? Okay, so iApplication. Okay, so this is part of MVC. This is what initializes the application, the web application, and every single service that makes it, sorry, this is not part of MVC. This is part of the .NET Core, okay? So this becomes the main application that you are running, and then you start to add services to that, like I'm using MVC, and then we're gonna be adding more and more services to application. So think about that iApplication Builder as in materialized here as app to be our main application, and we keep adding services to that, okay? Again, I get it, it's a bit abstract, but hey, hold on, I mean, believe that, okay? Again, it's better if we focus our efforts on the specifics of MVC and just say, okay, you know what, that app thing there, it's doing its thing, and I'll believe it, and I just keep, yeah, like that environment there. Well, that environment, it's really about, you can have configurations for development environment, for a staging environment, for the live environment. So that's parameter there.
Like a test environment?
Yes, can allow you to say, if I'm using a test environment, I should do this. Because you may have different conditions for your different environments, okay? So that's what that second one is. We're going to be looking at some of that. I think that even Sports Store has a little bit of that if it's in a development environment, it will give you more developer-friendly error messages, because then, as a developer, you want to see the full details of the problem that's going on. But as an end user, you just want to see something short and sweet that will not, overload the end user with too much information. Sometimes that even overload us as developers. Okay, so I just moved forward here. Very similar templates as the one before. So this is the one original. This is the new one now. Now, if you look at this template, what is the default controller? What is the default action? List. And we still have the optional ID. This is what Sports Store is using. Sports Store, we don't have a home controller. We have a product controller. So in Sports Store, it was configured and set as product being the default controller, list being the default action. Okay? I want to give that guy's perspective. I want to play this video here. It's 12 minutes, but we're going to just watch the first 7, 8 minutes there. He will go through more or less similar things that I have gone through, but with his own spin, with his own way. I think it's good to give you a second opinion on things. Okay? We'll play that.
Example, consider this incoming request URL http://localhost:1234. That is the server that's hosting our web application. In our case, it's the localhost. And then we have two path segments, /home/index. So the first path segment, /home, is mapped to the home controller class in our application. And in the second path segment, index, it is mapped to the index action method within our home controller. Now let's look at another example. Notice in this URL, we have three path segments, /home/details/1. As usual, the first path segment, /home, is mapped to the home controller, and the second path segment, /details, is mapped to the details action method within our home controller. And the third path segment, the value 1, that is mapped to the ID parameter on the details action method. So this mapping is done by the routing rules defined in our application. Let's look at this in action. Notice within our home controller class, we have two public methods, index and details. At the moment, this details action method is retrieving employee details whose ID is 1. At the moment, we have hard-coded the employee ID to 1. So instead of hard-coding it, let's pass the value as a parameter. I'm going to name the parameter ID, and we're going to use this.
Just want to pause this for a second so that you can put this a little bit in better context. Who can tell me how this will be used on assignment 2? Assignment 2, recipes. How this will be helpful to you?
If you didn't get which element you want to show.
Which recipe? So yeah, so that's what you're going to be using. Okay, this is what you're going to be doing. Okay, when you are listing the recipes there, each item in the list should be a URL, should have a URL that will have the recipe ID. And then you click, and then you go to view recipe, and then you see that particular recipe, all the details of that particular recipe. Okay, so that's where you're going to be using this. Okay, direct match there. Yes.
Employee ID to 1. So instead of hard coding it, let's pass the value as a parameter. I'm going to name the parameter ID, and we're going to use this ID parameter here instead of hard coding it. With all these changes in place, let's run our application. Notice we see the list of employees. Now we know it is this index action method within our home controller that is returning us the list of employees. Now if we take a look at the URL, within the URL we don't have those path segments /home/index. So the obvious question that comes to our mind is, how is this index action method within our home controller executed when we navigate to the root application URL? We'll answer that question in just a bit. For now, let's navigate to /home/details/1. Notice we see the details of the employee whose ID is 1. Now let's change the ID to 2 and we see that employee details. So this route /home/details/2 is mapped to the details action method within our home controller, and the value 2 is mapped to this ID parameter. This mapping is done by the routing rules configured within our application. But if you recollect from our previous videos in this series, we have not explicitly configured any routing rules within our application. So the obvious question that comes to our mind is, how are the routes mapped to these controller action methods? Well, if we take a look at this startup.cs file, we have this configure method. If you recollect from our previous videos in this series, it is this method that we use to set up a request processing pipeline for our application. Within this method, we are calling this extension method use MVC with default route. As you can see from the IntelliSense, this method adds MVC support to our app.
Look, just to show the point that I was trying to make, that when you say with default routes, the route that has been used is this one. It's controller equals to home, action equals to index, and then ID optional. That's what this rule behind the scenes is applying, okay? He's just calling your attention to that.
Applications request processing pipeline with a default route. We'll look at that default route in just a bit. For now, let's comment the call to this method. Without this method, our application does not have MVC support. But there is another way to add MVC support, and that is by using use MVC method. The difference between these two methods is, as the name implies, this use MVC with default route method adds MVC support with the default route configured, whereas this method only adds MVC support. It does not configure any default routes for our application. So now, with this setup in place, let's run our application and see what happens. Notice when we refresh the page, we see 404 error. This is because at the moment within our application, we don't have any routes configured. As a result, our application does not know how to handle this incoming URL. So let's configure routes for our application. We do that by using this use MVC method. Notice from the IntelliSense, this method has got two overloaded versions. We're going to use this overloaded version that takes action of iRouteBuilder as a parameter. I'm going to name it routes. Notice from the IntelliSense, the type of this routes parameter is iRouteBuilder, and this iRouteBuilder interface has got map route method, which we use to configure the routes for our application. Again, as you can see from the IntelliSense, every route has got a name and a template. I'm going to name our first route default. The second parameter is the template. The template specifies the URL pattern of the route. Now, if we take a look at this URL, we want to map this first path segment in the URL to a controller in our application. So within double quotes, I include a pair of curly braces and then specify controller. The second path segment in the URL is the name of the action method, and notice the action method and the controller are separated with a /. So I'm going to include a / here and then another pair of curly braces and then the word action. The next segment in the URL is this value 2. Again, notice between this value 2 and the action method name we have a /. So I'm going to include another / here, followed by that another pair of curly braces, and then name the parameter ID. With this route template in place, let's save our changes and take a look at the browser. Notice now when we reload the page, we see employee details whose ID is 2. So with this route template in place, the first URL path segment here, home, is mapped to the home controller. We don't have to have the word controller in the URL because MVC will automatically add the word controller to home and looks for home controller within our application. And then the second path segment details, that's mapped to the details action method. And the third path segment, that is this value 2, is mapped to ID parameter. At the moment, on our details action method, we have a parameter that has the same name, ID. So this value.
Okay, that's good. One thing that I want to highlight is the fact that the name of the parameter in the template has to match the name that's coming here. So if you are planning to use recipe ID, then your template needs to say recipe ID, and the name here needs to read recipe ID so they can match, okay? So it's not only about the location in the URL, but the name as well. ID and ID, they need to match. Okay, let me just step back here. 1 second. Okay, let's have a look at this rule here. Just looking at the rule that he put in place. If I ask you, what is the default controller in this case? What is it?
Any controller, you have listed in your home controller.
What is the default control? Again, remember one thing is that this is the only rule that is available right now in our application. There's nothing else behind the scenes here. It is what you see here. So I'm going to ask again, what is the default controller in this template? Nothing. There's no default controller. Because see, there's no equals to home here. There's no equals to product here. Because there's no equals to, it means that there's no default controller. There is no default action. So, of course, this is just an example, but in a way, this template is very rigid because unless the URL looks like this, controller slash action slash number, otherwise it won't work at all. You're going to have a 404. Any of that, if it's missing any element, it will give a 404 error. Okay, so this is what we need to be attuned to when we are creating our templates. Okay, and you're going to see a series of templates next. But yeah, in this case, no default, and not optional either because you don't have the question mark here. Okay. Again, use this video as a reference point when you are doing your assignment too, okay, for the ID. Okay, so let's see here. Back to our presentation here. So this is what you have with Sports Store, okay? You have 5 rules listed in Sports Store. Let's start here top to bottom, and let's see which each one of those rules are telling us. Let's read them. Let's interpret them. Because to be honest, it's really about, when you look at that, you have to not only read the words, but understand what they mean, what is stated there. You have here been introduced to a new property when creating a map route, the default one. Let's look at that template. See, the template there does not give us a controller nor an action. So if the template doesn't provide a controller spot and an action spot, somewhere else needs to do that, because a mapping rule will only make sense if we get to know who's the controller and what is the action. Who's the controller, what's the action. If a mapping rule does not give you that, to be honest, it's useless, because it doesn't have anyone to send that request to. Okay, so let's look at the first one. Who can tell me, actually, let's do this. Based on the first one, go to Padlet and write down a few URLs that would be a match for that. I'm gonna open Padlet here on the side. Go to Padlet, and I will just try to squeeze this in here. And give me a few examples of which URLs do you think that would be a fit for rule number 1 there, for that mapping rule. Okay, let's have a look here. Based on map on rule number 1, let's have a look at this one here. Product/list/page/1. Would this one here match there? This one? Product/list/page/1? Would it be a match? What is the problem with this one here?
There's 2.
There is?
3 parameters in this one, and there's only 2.
Let's count. First of all, let's count the segments. How many segments do we have here? 4 segments. Here, how many?
3.
Here, how many? 2 segments. Segments is delimited by the slash, okay? So we just have 1 slash, so we have 1 segment, 2 segments, okay? So that's the first thing. So here we have 4 segments. So not a good match there. This one here, well, I can eliminate that right away because it has 3 segments. There, we just have 2 segments, okay? Let's have a look at, because I think I saw one that could be a good one. Okay, this one here. Let me scroll this up a little bit. Okay, this one here. How about this? We have how many segments? 2 segments. So we have basketball/page1. Then we have this match page. You see that page is outside of curly braces? When you see a segment, a keyword that is outside curly braces, it means that that keyword needs to be in the URL. So to match that URL, we have to have something/page something. This second something here must be what? A number. Because now I'm not only saying that I need something here, but I'm also saying that I need something here that is a number. I'm constraining the type of this part. If I say soccer/page A, it would not match. Because A or B or C is not an integer. So it would not be a match. Okay? So this is a good match. This, again, three parts here, not a match because we have 3 segments. Product 1, well, that's a good try here, but yes, we have product which would match category, but then /1, we don't have page. Again, remember that if a keyword, an expression, is outside of curly braces, it means that it needs to be inside the URL, okay? Great, okay. Product list, product/list is not, because again, we need to have the keyword page. But of course, this is the first time that you see that. Questions?
You have declared the defaults controller and action. Why we still have localhost 1, 2, 3, 4 there?
Localhost, you mean here?
Yeah.
Because remember that this is the server, the host, the domain. This is how you are running it locally. This part here, routing doesn't care about that. This is the website address. This is, if this would be running under a Centennial, it would be centennialcollege.ca / whatever. And then this, after the / is what routing is really concerned about. So again, this first part, it doesn't matter too much, but of course we have to have that for the application to run. This is in a way, this is you can think about this as the address of your home, and then inside of your home you have different rooms in your home. But first you have to identify where is the house, the apartment. This is the address of the server, of the site.
But this default got confusion, because here it says controller, the default controller will be the product and action will be this.
Yeah, so can you formulate your question again so we can connect things?
Yeah.
What's your question?
Why, in part 1, we have the default controller like products and action as list. So.
In the first part, they used to be inside of the template. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Like
I think it should be in the template.
like this?
Yeah.
Like this, is it? Okay, so what if we don't want that? Then if we don't want to have the controller as one element in the URL, in the action not in the URL either, we have the option to say, okay, I get it. You're not putting the controller here. That's fine. You're not putting the action. That's fine. But I need to. So we define this that can complement what is inside of here. Ask a question. I'll reconnect with that.
So the default controller action, they are represented, so controller would be where the category bracket would be, if there was nothing there, and then action would be where but then would action be where the product page ends?
Okay, so
Is it like a match, or is it not, or is it just
it's completely, to be quite honest, we want to simplify our URL. That's the first thing. So this whole exercise is about how can I make the simplest URL in the best possible way. Now, well, let's think about this. So what if I try to remove the controller in the action from the URL? Because otherwise, imagine if you have to add controller and action to this URL, it will become quite long. It will become quite big, quite complex.
So you mean the controller action is hidden here?
Yes, that's a good way to put it. It's hidden from the template. It's not inside the template anymore. It's specified right here. And in a way, yeah. Again, if the controller and the action are not specified in the template, it needs to be specified somewhere. What I can tell you is this. A rule like this without defaults would be useless. Because, yes, we can have a match to this template, but then which controller am I sending this to? Which action am I sending this to? There's nothing specified. Okay. You had some questions there. I saw some hands up.
So where do we specify the page? Like 1, 2, 3. It's not
Where do we specify this page here? Well, it could be manually typed by the user in the URL, but of course, users will not be typing those things. So the URLs that we create throughout our site, they will have that structure. Let me run the application here. Go ahead.
If they don't put anything, you just take them to the product controller and shows them a list of all the products?
Well, you mean you mean the root of the site, if they don't put anything in the URL? So let's look at which rule will match that. Because we have 5 rules here. Which one of those rules would match when the site loads for the first time without anything after that? Fourth one. You see the template in the fourth one? If it's to load down, the presentation is on Centennial as well, so you can download it from Centennial. Template on fourth one is empty. It means that if there's nothing in the URL, then use this template. Use this rule here. What this rule tells us? Use controller product, use action list, and load page number 1. Let me run the application so we can have a look at that URL in the context of our application. Okay.
Which version are you using?
I'm using, right now, you can use step number 4, because I think that up to step number 4 is done, but I think I'm using here the last step of chapter 9. So look at this. We load for the first time, nothing in the URL. In this case here, the rule that is matching is this one here. Empty template, so it's calling product, calling action, and sending product page equals to 1. Okay? Now, what if I try to do paging? See, I'm going to hit page 2 here. Let's look at the URL. Look, so who's providing the URL? Our application is providing that via the links that we have created inside of our application. It's providing that kind of URL. You see there? Page 2. Let's look at the rules. Page 2, which rule is matching that? Second one, page 2. Okay? Now, let me filter. Let me say, I'm going to click on chess, and let's look at the URL. When I click on chess for the first time, /chess /page 1. Let's look at that. Yeah, let's see which rule is matching that. Which one? First one, we have chess as category. Page, we have number 1. Okay? So so again, we are not expecting the users to type in those URLs. But for us to test for the first time, maybe we have to type in them, because we may not have the controls yet in place to build the URLs through the system, through the views. Okay?
So the first one's category page, second one's only page, third one's only category, and the fourth one is
nothing, which means it's the first time that the site loads. Let's have a look at this one here. To be quite honest, I think that this one, it's not really necessary, because first one is doing that loading page number 1. So this one is in a way already taking care of that. But this one here, if I would try to type in the URL, it would be something like a soccer. So you see, now I have filtered by soccer. So the rule being applied here is rule number 3, just the category. Now, remember one thing, for routing, it doesn't make sense if you type in /soccer or /admin or /home or /clients. It doesn't care about what you're typing. It just cares that, oh, you typed in clients. Okay, which one is the match here? It's this one. Does it make sense client to be the category? Well, maybe not. But it's not up to the router to decide that. The router is just about strings and matching them up. If I try to type in here in our application, admin. See, it doesn't give me an error. Who is taking care of displaying that? Well, if I say admin, we have to have a look at the route rules. Which rule does it match? Which one? Category here. So when we go to this rule, we have to go to the product controller, to the action list, page number 1. So who needs to take care of, decide what to do with that is really the list here.
I noticed that it doesn't show page number 1 in the URL.
When I type.
Yeah.
Because there is no page number 1.
Well, it doesn't show because I typed in directly. I was the one that typed in. So
It's a hard code page number 1. So if you just have admin there, if you go to page number 1 directly.
yeah, so it's one thing is the URLs generated through the system that you saw that we can click on the different pages. But another thing is when myself as a user, I type something in the URL directly. This is not about transforming what the user is typing, but creating maps to, here's the thing. It doesn't matter if I'm clicking or if I'm typing to the application, both things are the same. Behind the scenes is the same. It doesn't matter if I click or if I type. It's still a GET request going to the application. That one I typed, the other one I clicked. but it does make a difference. Now, of course, and it's beyond this class in particular. We're gonna look at how we build those links properly a little bit later. Okay, but yeah, questions? Let's see if there's anything here going on. Okay. Okay, so actually, you know what? Let's have 5 minutes, and then once we come back, we have to do some exercise, and yeah, that's it. 5 minutes.
When you're gonna check the assignment?
Second half of the class.
So what time? Because I need to leave soon. I have an interview afternoon.
What time do you need to leave? What time?
Maybe 11.
Oh, that's okay. So because by 10 o'clock we're gonna be most likely starting that, so you can be the first one. Okay?
This is when I realized well, I mean, the thing is that if a girl is running away from a guy and she's being chased, I know, but also he wasn't actually attacking her, but she did break her bag and make it seem like he's fucking you separate. Oh, trust me, I know. That's exactly. You did all right. Yeah. And you know what's funny?
Apparently there is a centennial party on
This lady would be super fucking nice, man. She always gives me like random
museum party.
and she gave me something that she knew was like,
Who has time for partying with me?
and she was like, yeah. Here's the thing, I was like, you should do this. And then she was like, no, I did this. I'm like, I can't. I did say after about, yeah, I'm just like, alright, bro, whatever. I just hold on to it. It was like almond chocolates, like almond and whatever. It was like terrible. It's not bad. It's not. It was dark chocolate joy. So I guess I got like one or two a day or something.
This is just a small thing. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I won't know the same way. So I have to try. Yeah, I know.
We had to break a bunch of stuff for that. What's it called? There was definitely for sure
Yep, go ahead. Think for the recording, okay? I'll make sure that I include that. Thank you very much. That's good, great.
So the template, so default would be, could you say it's the base, and then the template would add to whatever's in the base?
I would say that they work together because as you can see
So I'll show
here.
you an example. So here,
The,
if I put, see, my default is product and action is list. Right?
yeah.
So, but I'm putting a category and a page number. Is that adding on to whatever my base is, the default?
Your base URL, you mean? Okay. Okay, so it's adding that your list has two properties. Has two incoming, sorry, not properties. Your list has two parameters. See, if we go to the codes, if we look at the codes, actually I should have mentioned this. If you go to the list, you see we have a category and a product page. They are coming straight away from this spot and this spot in the URL. Now, because we don't have the control in the URL, in the action in the URL, we have to tell somewhere else, which is the default, where if it matches this pattern, what is the product and what is the action?
So my question would be, does template always pertain to the action?
Yes. Yes. Always.
Okay.
Now, the action might be fixed like this because this one here is fixed. I cannot change the action for this template. I cannot change in runtime. I can change no, it's not called list, it's called list 1, 2, 3. But in runtime, I cannot match this URL by trying a different action. I mean, the action for this template is always list.
It will always require those properties.
Yes.
And if
yes.
not, then I give it a default property like page 1. I just need the category. So you know how we have category and page here?
Yep.
Here I can just put page 1.
Like this one. Like this one here. Yes.
But you always need those two properties for that action
to be called. Yes. Unless, now, here's the thing. There is an unless here. Parameters, yeah. Unless, and actually this is the case. See, product page, if you look at the codes, it has a default already. So because it has a default, it becomes in a way optional to be sent. So even if I don't have a product page here, because of my situation, then the product page will become 1. If I did not have that, I would always have to specify the product page.
It's better practice to put the default page in case, or it doesn't really just.
I would say that here you are double covered in a way, because you are covered from the fact that you put a default value in the parameter, and you are covered here as well because we have another default here. So it was in a way a bit doubled, because because of this, I could have removed product page from it would, yes, it would have. Okay, no problem.
Bro, you've been missing a lot. Like, there's like...
Okay, so let's keep moving. Let's get us moving. So, I have 3 sets of quizzes. Just, no, not graded, just as exercise. 3 sets, each set with 5 questions. If you go to Nearpod and use that code over there, give it a try. I'll give you 3-4 minutes to give a try. What it will do is, it will present you a URL, and you're gonna have to say which rule did it match. Okay? That's basically it. So nearpod.com, and then this is the code for your Nearpod. And I'll give it 3 minutes. On each one of the Nearpods, if you want to see this in your screen, you can click the image, and you're going to see these exact slides in your pod as well. In the top right-hand corner, you can click there, and you can see this slide. Which URL, which route rule matches the URL that I'm mentioning in the question. Yeah, sure.
If I have a page 2 for my websites and I type 2 there, will that be the page 1 to be shown, or it will go to the page 2?
It would go straight to the page 2.
Oh, so.
So if you type in slash, let's say, soccer slash page 2, it would go.
No soccer, just page 2.
Page 2?
I want to use the second one.
You okay? So if you put page 2,
Yeah,
what
if
will?
I have this page 2.
Yeah.
If I don't have this page 2, it will still in the page 1, right?
No, it will try to go to page 2. Now, it's up to the list to see, oh, there's no page 2. What should I do?
Arrow.
Well, again, it's up to, what you have implemented as the rules of your lists. I mean, what will happen if there's no page 2?
Yeah.
Well, it has to decide, but it's not about the routing. The routing doesn't care about that. Who cares about that is your controller and your action. Because you have to define the rules for.
If I didn't define, there will be an error message.
It depends on how good or bad your code was.
Okay.
Because we can even try. You can try to type in, just for the sake of argument here. Let's type. See if I have it running. Yes, I have. Let's type here page 24. So, see, that's what is happening here. So again, most likely I'm trying to access page 24. There is no data. Then I'm not seeing anything. There's no error, but there's no data. So again, it's up to the logic that you coded in your. Let's look at the codes. Exactly in your action here. It's up to that to figure out what to do in that case. Okay? Okay, so let's have a look at the questions here. So, okay, so almost half. Okay. Here is the code. Okay, so which routing rule matches slash soccer? Which one? 3, yeah, it just has one segment. It's the natural one here. Now, what if I ask you this? What if something matches 2 rules? I'll give an example. If I say slash soccer slash page 2. Actually, if you look at the rules, which other rule is a match for slash soccer slash page 2? Which? Number 1 is, I get it. But what other rule is a match for soccer slash page 2? Which other rule is a match?
How about
2? 2? Well, 2 we just have one segment.
Oh, number 5.
Number 5.
Number 5, yes, we have controller, which should be soccer. We have action, which should be page 2 or page 20. So how come it went with this one?
Because we have action to ask for the category.
Actually, the answer is way more simple than that.
Because it's 2 arguments versus 5.
Again, it's even simpler than that.
It's the first one.
It's the first one.
It's the first one.
Because it's the first one. Yes.
I'm thinking to myself, like, it's gotta be.
Exactly. It's the first one. So if it finds this one here, it's a match, great. Go for it. Doesn't even look at the rest of it. Okay? That's it.
So it doesn't need like a break statement or anything?
Nothing. No. It does not. It gets the first one. Oh, it's a match. And so, again, with that in mind, you have to consider that you have to think about priorities, which one you want to match first. Okay? So you put that as high as possible. Okay? Okay, so for this one, we have number 3. For this one, slash product slash list. Which one? Slash product slash list. Again, right away, we see that we have to what? Segments. So we can eliminate all the ones that have less than 2 or more than 2 segments. So, come on, which one? 5. 5 because we have, you see, product becomes the controller, list becomes the action, and then ID is optional, okay? So again, it's not a match for the first one because we have page, so you can eliminate right away. Page, no page, and this has just one segment, no segments. Again, it could be this one or no one, but it's this one here. We have a match controller, match action, and optional ID. Okay. So 5. Next one here, just slash 4. So there's nothing there, okay? It's also when we say slash, you can also hear this site root. Site root is no additional segments in the URL. It's the site root, okay? Site home, site root. So it's 4. And then slash home slash index. 5 again. 5 again. Again, home becomes the controller, action, index becomes the action, and there's no ID. And last one here, soccer slash 1.
It can't be the first one because there's no page.
Okay. Correct.
Oh, no,
Okay, it's 5, but that URL will never work. Why? There's no action called 1. Actually, it cannot be, because an action is also a method. A method cannot start with numbers. Okay, so it will never work. But again, if you are just focusing on the routes here, it would match this one, you know. But it would never work. Okay, so I would like to do the second set. I have 3 sets. I'm just going to go as far as the second one, and then we're going to start our assignment 1 segment. But let's do the next set here. So the URL is the same in your pods. We just move forward with a new set of questions. I'll just give 3 minutes and you'll be back. Yeah, I'll show the picture. Here's the picture. The code is the same. You also have the picture here.
Yeah,
if you click there.
too small.
That's fine, that's fine. No, but you can click there.
Oh, okay.
You can click. Okay. Actually, while you do that, I'll take a quick attendance here. Alvin, Amel, Arshdeep, Assad, Ben, Bojang, Brandon, Carlos, Gary, Alan, Intias, Ikra, Jerry, Janyu Chen, Joyeta, Katrina, Likai, Lucy, Mustafa, Rina, Tahir, Ha, Titu, Ha, Tingli, Weme, Wenme, Tony, Gillian, Xinglong, Wybin, yeah. Ing Zhao, Shiz, Cizil, yeah. If I did not call your name, let me know, okay? Okay, right on time. Okay, so let's do the last set here. Okay, so /admin /show products /5. 5. /page 7. 2. Okay. /chess. 3. Yep. Actually, let me check something here. See? I told you, you'd become experts after today. Okay, so /product /list /2. 5 again. And last but not least, /student. See, even though it does not necessarily make sense to have a category called student, but hey, it's a match. It only cares about strings. Okay? So it's 3. Great. Any questions? Anyone with anything lingering?
So for the number 5.
Number 5.
We have a slash before, that we counted.
Oh, the slash before, the slash at the very beginning? Yeah, we assume that. We assume that first one, yes. Okay? We always assume the first one. The rule will never mention the first one here, okay?
Yeah, the first 4 are clear, but the 5th one, since we have I thought we have just
2 segments?
Yeah.
2 segments. We have 1, 2, 3 segments. So each slash separates 2 segments. Okay? Yeah. Anything else? Okay, so a few things before, because once we start this assignment 2, this assignment 1, I know how it goes and I won't be talking too much anymore. So first thing, for next weekend, we have class and I have set aside a bonus. So let's go there to Centennial quickly. Where is the Centennial here? Okay, so under Centennial, if you go to week number 6, you're going to see the details of bonus 7. Bonus 7 basically will ask you to go through videos 1, 2, 3, and 4 from Sports Store, chapter 10. Okay? Now, again, pay attention to this part. For you to be able to start chapter 10, you have to go and get which source file. Well, you can develop that yourself, that's fine. But if you don't have it yet, which source file are you going to use to start chapter 10? The last one of chapter 9, okay? So you can go to the source. It's not there yet, but it will be. You can go to source code, Sports Store chapter 9. The very last one, use that one, and very last one in chapter 9 should be number 12. I'll upload that before the end of the class. But, so again, use that one as your starting point for the next bonus, okay? Any question about that?
So, also, there were like chapter 9 videos.
Yeah.
Right? So, and what you just showed there was chapter 10 videos for bonus 7.
Mm-hmm.
In order for us to do the bonus 7, we have to do the...
So, as I mentioned before, how am I working with those 5 chapters, chapter 8, 9, 10, 11, 12? A lot of videos, a lot of content. I'm focusing here on providing what I feel is the most important part of that particular chapter. For instance, we covered the database, then we covered what was the other one? Anyway, I'm covering the aspects that I think are the most important ones for each one. We're covering routing here. If you want to go video by video and practice them, go for it. I'll be asking for assignments, for tests, I'll be asking you to focus on the aspects that I have presented here for you. Routing, database, I'll be asking about them. But the other ones, I'll not be going to the nitty-gritty details of each one. If you want to go video by video, step by step, go for it. Bring your questions that you have to me during the exercise. We can look at that individually. So I would say, if you want to do video by video, do it. If you want to skip and say, you know what, I'm going to just get the latest of Sports Store, and I'm going to do the 4 next videos for chapter 10, that's fine as well, okay? Whatever you feel comfortable, I'm here to, I would say, to assist if you want to just follow the ones that I'm talking about here, or if you want to follow one by one. If you want to go deep, I'm here. If you want to go, let's put it this way, shallow, I'm here as well for you. You have a question?
The one you're just covering basically the core concepts.
Yes. Yes, I'm covering what is the most important aspect. I'm not going to go for the nitty-gritty, that particular method that has 10 parameters that you have. We just don't have time to cover the nitty-gritty. We need to cover the most important aspects, and that's what my focus here is. Hopefully that makes sense. Okay? So I hope that answered your question, Ben.
Yeah,
okay?
It did.
Okay, so for what we're going to do next, I'll be going one by one, ordered by alphabetically, but I'm going to give priority to your case there that you need to go. So I'm going to go one by one from top to bottom, first name basis. So it may take a bit to get to you, but use the time well. What I would ask you to do is, on chapter 9, download part 4 and get going with video 5, 6 of chapter 9. Keep them going. Or maybe, keep this going here. Go through the videos, go to step 5, 6, 7. Use the time that you have here well. And again, write down your questions. I'll address them eventually. But use the time well while I'm one-on-one with each one of you. Usually it takes about 5 minutes, 6 minutes with each one. So again, you're going to have plenty of time here. We're going to have pretty much 2 hours and 20 minutes here to, if you need a break or anything, by all means, the door is there. Just go for it. Any questions? Okay. Please download the code of your assignment. Have it loaded there. Give it a try and see if it's working. So once I get to you, it's already loaded somewhere and we can just talk about it, okay? Yeah, that's about it. Let's get going.